Hey, everybody that's joining us today. Hi, Jim. Hi, Sharon. Hi, Alex. Welcome, welcome. We're going to be letting some people join us for the next 5 minutes or so. But welcome. Perfect. Looks like Sharon's from Venice, Florida. Awesome. Thanks for joining us today. We'll be doing a little bit of a poll later on to get some, an idea of your nonprofit type or your organization type. Some other questions too. So looking forward to getting to know you all a little bit in just a minute. We'll give some attendees a little bit more time to join. Okay, well, we'll wait for some other people to be joining today, but I want to, welcome everyone that's here so far to today's Roundtable webinar. We have museums, theaters, and more, scaling your ticket sales in a reopening world. Just firstly, as we're going into intros, on behalf of Community Boost, we're just really so excited to bring you today's roundtable discussion, and we hope it helps your arts organization, museum, symphony, or just general nonprofit successfully navigate this crucial reopening period. We know it definitely has been a challenge, and that's why we brought on some experts that we closely work with and know a ton about this specific topic. Please know, I want everyone to know that's joined us so far that we are allowing for plenty of question and answers. We want to do a total Q&A at the end and want to have our panelists answer as many of your questions as possible. So feel free throughout the entire webinar to please use the Q&A feature or post in the chat if you have any questions whatsoever as they come up. We definitely want to make sure that we have plenty of time, 10 to 15 minutes towards the end to go through all of those. And we still have some people joining, but we definitely want to make sure we have time to get to everything today. So without further ado, let's get started. Little quick intro as to who I am. My name is Blake Arata. I am the Director of Traffic and Conversions at Community Boost. If you're not familiar with us, we are a digital marketing agency that specifically helps nonprofit organizations accelerate online revenue and impact. We kind of joke here because we have something like 150 nonprofit partners and then one nightclub that we serve here in San Diego. So mainly nonprofits, but not all nonprofits. Got to have a little fun with the nightclub too. But truly, I'm so excited to be joined by a few of our longtime partners here at Community Boost. They are really, truly the stars of today's session, and I will be introducing them all in just a minute. But first, before we get into that, I do want to get into some of the polling of the group. So, I'm sure we all know that there has been a ton of content created around how to persevere through COVID-19, how to virtually fundraise during COVID-19 and more. But honestly, we found it's been a challenge to find custom content really centered around supporting nonprofits that are driving the majority of their revenue through in-person attendance. And so that was kind of the genesis of this webinar, is finding nonprofits who are struggling with the same thing. And we wanted to source some of our nonprofit partners that have been doing a great job kind of working through this challenge and sharing some of those insights with you all. Really, we want this webinar to be focused on you, the local arts organization, the local theater, museum, science center, historic site, symphony, etc. And we really want to hear from you. So I want to kick off this session with a few quick poll questions so we can really cater today's conversation as much as possible for all of you. So I'm going to launch a poll in the Zoom chat. And if you wouldn't mind answering these questions for us, that would be awesome. And then I can share my screen and go through some of these results. So I'll just give everyone that's here a minute or so to go through.
Blake, do you want us to answer these as well, or do you want us to just leave that to everybody who's attending?
Yeah, we can just leave it to everyone that's attending. Perfect. Good, great question, Jake. And if you're having any issues seeing the poll, go ahead and chat us, and we'll make sure that we get that going for you. Perfect. We'll give everyone else a little bit more time. We've only had a couple people that have answered so far. There we go. Thank you. So far, it looks like we have a good mix of people here today. We have some theaters, some symphonies, others. That's really, really helpful. And then the second question is, how has your organization's digital engagement increased over the year? Or has it? We've had one answer, no, we've just been trying to stay afloat. Got it. Yeah, I mean, totally get that. It's pretty common right now. And then we have a couple answers. The most chosen answer is yes, we've seen great engagement and have been launching new digital initiatives. That's great to hear. And then when do you plan to reopen? We have some August or September answers here. Also some October or later. So it sounds like the majority of people are planning on opening later on in the year. And then lastly, what are your ticket sales goals for 2021? The first answer is the same as they were pre-2020, but most people here are saying that they're hoping to be just slightly under what their goals were for 2020. So thank you so much for answering those questions. It's really, really helpful, and it kind of gives us a great foundation and some context as we go into the rest of this conversation. So I appreciate it. Perfect. Well, now I really, really want to get into some brief introductions from our panelists. I have some questions that I would like to ask them, kind of go into that flow, and then, but really would personally like to just map to Q&A as quickly as possible so that they can provide as much value to you, the audience, as possible. Our goal today is that you experience with us some shared challenges and opportunities that we all see both from a macro and micro lens, and that you walk away with some very actionable resources and strategies to put into play immediately as we navigate this year. So, perfect. Our expert panel today includes Kristina Celik from Arizona Science Center. We also have Jake Speck from 80 Players at the George Theater. Welcome to the Roundtable, you two. We really appreciate you being here. Can you each give us just a quick introduction of your story, what brought you into your current role, as well as specifically how the past few months have been like for you and your organizations? We can start with you, Jake, if you like.
Sure, I'll try to be brief. Yeah, I'm in Houston, Texas, and have been here for 4 years. Prior to that, I held a similar position. I'm the executive director of this theater here. I held a similar position at a theater in Nashville, Tennessee that I founded called Studio 10 Theater Company. And my route to arts management was somewhat unorthodox because prior to that, I was a Broadway performer in New York. So I went from the artist side to the administrative side, and have really enjoyed my time in arts management. And I think it has worked to my benefit that I know the artistic side as well. But I always had very much an interest in the business side of the arts. Sorry, what was the other thing you wanted us to say? How we got where we are and
how the past few months have been for you and your organization.
So the past few months have actually been very encouraging because we are planning to reopen at the beginning of October, and we finally feel like we're actually planning for some in-person programming that's actually going to happen. So there's been a little bit of like, it's been like, oh gosh, okay, we gotta go, we gotta get going, we gotta, do we still know how to do this? But there's been, I would say, a significant increase in morale around this idea that like, we're really gonna do this. We're really gonna do a show with real people in the real theater again. So it's been, I'd say we've been cautiously optimistic, and it's been encouraging over the last few months.
Thanks for that great intro. Appreciate that, Jake. And Kristina?
Good morning, everyone. So kind of like Jake said, my role, kind of my path to nonprofit is a little bit of a zigzag. Prior to joining Arizona Science Center, I was in hospitality working for Marriott's corporate marketing team. I actually joined Arizona Science Center 4 days before we shut down for COVID. So totally new industry, totally new organization, and then we shut down and went home. So we actually reopened in August, late August 2021 or 2020, excuse me. So we've been open for quite a bit. We opened originally in June. So we did a 10-day run in June, and then the numbers in Arizona just got really bad, so we shut down. But we have been open 6 days a week since late August, and are seeing about 20% occupancy, 20 to 23% occupancy since we reopened, with our numbers getting stronger. So our morale is definitely up. Our team is mighty and small. Pre-COVID, we were about 160 team members. Now we're at 40. So we really are using all of our resources to kind of stay open and really just lean on each other, and really just using our partners to make sure we are kind of maximizing every dollar, every opportunity to keep people continuously coming through our doors. And we are seeing those numbers increase. On June 1st, we're going back to 7 days a week and increasing our occupancy allowed in the building. So we've kind of been on this road for a little bit. So I'm happy to brainstorm with anyone as you guys start planning your reopening plans. Like, we have tried and failed many, many times throughout this process. So if there's ever anybody wants to, brainstorm, I'm happy to spend that time, because it's been a learning curve, but a really successful one for our team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm thankful, lucky enough to actually work directly with Kristina. And it's been cool to see Arizona Science Center try so many different things during COVID. Not all of them worked, but they were all high impact fails, because we learned a lot about what we wanted to do with the next approach and what we didn't. So I'm excited to get into a little bit of that in some of these questions. So yeah, that's a perfect segue. Why don't we just get into some of these specific questions here? Appreciate the intro from the both of you. Kristina, we can start with you. Can you tell me how you stayed connected with the children at the Arizona Science Center, both virtually and in person, as you've reopened?
That's a great question. I think the first thing we did is we listened, and we listened to their parents, because obviously, the gateway to the children is their parents. And so when we immediately closed in March, we went straight to Facebook, and we were doing daily Facebook Lives twice a day. So for our younger friends, we were doing story time tied with a science activity. And then in the afternoon, we were doing kind of more demonstrations that kind of spoke to our older audience. We did that until it really didn't become useful anymore. And so we are constantly polling and listening and monitoring kind of how our reach was going. And then we also connected a lot of activities to where in last March, if you can remember back then, kids were home, school was kind of in question, trying to figure out what to do. And so we were providing free opportunities for parents and their families to do at home, and ways to interact with us on video, and really trying to stay connected. Again, kind of like Blake mentioned, we did some stuff that was awesome, and it was really great, and it served its purpose for a time. And then we did some stuff that failed terribly, but we learned and we moved on. And it was just a constant connection with our members. We sent out a lot of surveys. We had a lot of polls, both on social media and on our website, kind of listening to what worked and what parents needed. At one point, we even had an educational support, kind of, we called chat line, where parents could call in to figure out how to support their kids in their virtual classrooms as they're setting up in the virtual space. And that lasted a couple of weeks, and the parents felt good, and we kind of sunsetted that and moved on to the next thing. So we just kind of tried a million things to figure out how people needed us, and listened to that and responded accordingly.
Yeah, and one thing that really sticks out to me, and something that we've been testing a little bit more at Community Boost too. I know, Kristina, you did so many, like you said, surveys and polls of your current customers to see what they were looking for, what kind of safety regulation they would want put in place and whatnot. But for those of you that are on this webinar and might not know, Google actually has a pretty cool tool called Google Surveys, where you can connect to an audience that you're looking for. It might be, let's say, moms of children that are, toddlers, and you can send out mass surveys to them in your local area, and you can get statistically significant data about questions that you might be wondering. And it's relatively inexpensive because Google, for better or for worse, has a lot of these people already either signed up through Gmail or whatnot. So they have access to big pools of data, but it is a really cool way to quickly get to some answers about hypotheses you might have about reopening and whatnot. So thank you so much for answering that, Kristina. Jake, question for you. You serve as the executive director for one of the largest theaters in Houston. How has the reopening planning process been going for you, and how have you driven ticket sales even while the theater has been closed for in-person performance?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of relate to Kristina in the sense that I feel like we threw everything up against the wall and just saw what would stick. I mean, back in October of 2020, we actually tried an in-person music event. We worked with the Musicians Union to get those contracts in place, and we did the testing and we did all of that. It was 25% capacity. Everybody had to be masked and distanced in the audience. We installed hospital-grade UV lights in the HVAC system. And it just didn't work, didn't fly, couldn't sell the tickets. So we actually did an outdoor event that was socially distanced with food trucks that actually went pretty well because we got a great sponsor for it. And then we just went straight virtual, like so many other theaters have done. We were really fortunate that we had a large family foundation in Houston that stepped up and gave us money to purchase all of our video and streaming equipment. So we have been producing virtual content on our stage and making that available to our audience. We've also done a virtual play festival, which launches next week, actually. And some of that was done. We've done a combination of things that were filmed on the stage and then edited and released, and things that were filmed with actors in their homes. So we send them a camera, a lighting setup, and everything, and they film themselves at home. It's very complicated, but then we have it all edited together. It's stuff that I never thought in a million years I would be producing or participating in. But we've done so much different content, and in the virtual world, like many of our colleagues, we announced a season, I guess it was in late spring 2020, that was going to reopen in the fall, because all of us at that point thought that was a very reasonable time frame to fully reopen the theater. And so we sold quite a lot of season tickets to a season that did not happen. And fortunately, our subscribers, for the most part, have been incredibly generous. I mean, I think we refunded maybe 20% of those subscriptions. Everybody else either just said, just keep it as a donation, or we'll just take whatever virtual content you put out. So we were fortunate that we did have kind of a pool of money there to produce that virtual content. So some of that content is paid content. Some of that content we've made free. It's all free to the subscribers. If you're a subscriber and you paid for a subscription, it's all free to you. And for us, it's been less about generating revenue from it and more about just engagement. I'm sure you all have experienced, I mean, even on, we have a small group on this today. I remember I did one of these with you guys right at the beginning, and we had tons of people on it. I think that the appetite for virtual content, at least from our perspective, has gotten smaller and smaller as we've gotten further and further into this. So we have generated some revenue with it, but for us, it was more about engagement, staying in front of our audience, making sure they know that we're still here, we still care about them, we're still trying to create content for them until we can get them live back inside of the theater. And so the planning and the selling of tickets while we're not there has been largely centered around that. But now we're starting to focus on the actual reopening, which is exciting. I mean, I feel like a lot of this, we've been just trying to put Band-Aids on the audience until we can actually produce something in person for them. And it's hard because the economics of it, for anybody that produces live performing arts events, it's really expensive. And so we have to be relatively certain that we can sell a certain amount of tickets in order to pay for what we're going to produce on the stage. And if we can if we can only sell 20% of our house, that's just not going to cut it. So we're hedging our bets on October for that reason.
You brought up a really good point about people's virtual appetite decreasing as we get closer and closer to opening, for a lot of these organizations. But do you think from everything that you've learned now about how to create virtual content, that will become a part of your evergreen advertising strategy moving forward? Like, how do you think you're going to incorporate virtual moving forward, or will you?
I think we will. I mean, I was kind of on this bandwagon even before COVID of with streaming services and everything, and Broadway HD that you can subscribe to, and Hamilton is on Disney Plus now. That if we don't get in that game, we're going to be left behind at some level. And so, and especially now that our theater is outfitted with, I mean, we've got 4K HD RoboCams that can capture and live stream or record anything we do on our stage. It can be operated by one person that can live edit. So as long as the licensing organizations keep playing ball, which they've been wonderful during COVID, and they've basically allowed streaming rights to everything, I think we're going to see them clamp down on that a little bit more coming out of COVID. But as long as they will continue to allow us to obtain streaming rights to the pieces that we're presenting, I don't know why we wouldn't continue to offer virtual options. We definitely plan to in the fall, because I think we'll still have a certain percentage of the population who's not going to be comfortable coming to the theater. But yeah, I mean, we intend to keep it as part of our model going forward. It'll never be our primary because theater is live. That is the nature of what we do. It is live, and I always say I don't think it'll ever be replaced, because there's no replacement for sitting in a theater with other people and having a common experience at the same time, breathing the same air as the actors, having that collective experience as an audience. You cannot do that in your living room on Netflix. It's just not the same experience. So live will always be our focus, but I think virtual will continue to be something that we invest in and do.
Great. And then here's a question for the both of you. So Jake, we can start with you and then go back to Kristina. I'm making you talk a lot all in a row. But recessions or crises, while stressful, often create opportunity. And for many of our partners in the communities they serve, COVID-19 acted as an accelerant of digital adoption. So very similar to what we were just talking about. And we think that this digital adoption is here to stay. Do you agree? Have you talked to friends that work at other nonprofits or organizations? How do you feel like the general sense from nonprofits is towards moving towards digital, and how do you think that organizations plan on continuing to use digital initiatives in reopening?
Yeah, I mean, as I kind of said before, I think it's going to be an essential component moving forward. I haven't talked to many other leaders in the nonprofit world who don't agree with that. And whether we wanted to be or not, we were all sort of forced into this space. So we've all figured it out, for lack of a better phrase. We've somewhat figured out how to do it now. So we kind of have this new tool in our toolbox. And for us, we have this new equipment that we didn't have before, that we probably never would have invested the kind of money that we invested in it had COVID not happened, at least not as soon as we did. So yeah, I mean, I think it's here to stay for sure, and I think it would be foolish not to continue to invest in it.
I 100% agree. I know as we're planning, we have 3 new exhibitions opening this spring and fall, and everything that hits our floor now, it now will have a virtual component. So for example, we're opening a bubble kind of exhibition that now will have takeaway things that you can do at home, or if you are not on site, how you can bring the science of bubbles to your classroom or to your home activity. So everything we are doing in the Science Center moving forward, all content created, will have a virtual aspect to it. And that really allows us not only to kind of keep the science and the wonder going when that guest leaves the Science Center and heads home, but for those classrooms that are, in Northern Arizona or, outside of the state that want to still participate, allow them opportunity to experience the Science Center in a virtual setting. So we will have that lens moving forward. And we're actually investing in even new team members that are being hired to do more video and to do more editing and to really help move that along, because we foresee it as part of our process moving forward. We now have classrooms that we support in Wisconsin and Minnesota through this whole kind of COVID bandwidth, the classrooms that reached out, we're creating content for them. So it's really opened a window of our reach, that we now are so much bigger than just the walls of our building. And so the virtual kind of, I think Jake, you nailed it on the head. Like it was always in our plan, but COVID forced us to do it faster and move faster than we probably would have, just because business is great, things were great. And so now it kind of allowed us to push us forward, make those investments, and really start planning for the future, and really allowing us to branch out to new neighborhoods and new areas. And it's been really exciting and really invigorating for our team.
Nice. And I don't know if either of you had worked at organizations in the past where maybe the conversation around digital was a hard one to have, whether it was with the marketing team or talking to that decider of moving to digital, where maybe they were using a more traditional kind of marketing at that point. What would be some advice you'd give to people on this call as far as like even starting that conversation, and key points as to why you should make the move to digital, or at least have it be part of the omni-channel marketing kind of strategy?
So coming pre-nonprofit, I was working in hospitality. So I was supporting luxury hotels within the state of Texas. So a lot of our owners were folks that were not very tech savvy. They didn't understand where this line item of digital marketing was, $500,000, $250,000. What the heck am I spending? What does this mean? And I think the fear behind digital as a whole is people just don't understand it. They don't understand what you're trying to sell them, because for them, it's not a tangible, it's not a rack card, or it's not a print magazine ad. It's not kind of anything they can look and feel and touch. So I think our responsibility as marketers is to explain it better and to make it to a level where everyone can understand it. So on our team, I do a monthly marketing update where we talk about our social reach and we talk about our digital reach and what that means. And the importance of digital, I think now in COVID's era for us, has been the only marketing we've done in the last 12 months is purely digital, because we can edit it, we can pivot it, we can watch to see, oh, look, this segment is growing, or this test market's growing, or look what our Google grant is doing. We can look and feel and touch that in real time. And so for our team and our board of directors, it's really been my job to explain what that means. Retargeting, although it's been around a while, you would think the board, like our board, just now understands it. So it is quite entertaining. Well, they'll say, I just saw the ad. Oh my gosh, it was on my phone. Like all of these things that you and I have been so familiar with, this is just something that people have ignored and didn't understand, that it's a very low cost effective way to reach a broader audience. And so I do regular updates and I'm explaining it, and I'm making myself available to have these kind of offline conversations for the folks that are on the call going, yeah, I totally get it. And then later, like, what did you say? I don't understand. And so I think using real life examples to explain it and explain its flexibility really will make that conversation a lot easier. And again, I've had these conversations with hoteliers that have no idea. They don't even use their computers. So, just making it really simple and understanding that it is the easiest way to pivot on a dime and it's low cost and effective. Then I think people start to see that you can track conversion. That's always my favorite, when they'll say, well, did it work? And I'll go, oh, it made us this amount of dollars. I'm like, okay, great. Made money. Awesome. Cost me this. Perfect. Like show that ROI and just be really clear on kind of the importance of it, and give real life examples. And I think it's an easy yes moving forward once people kind of understand a little bit more and don't feel so in the dark, because I think that's when you get the no, it's because they're afraid and they have no idea what they're spending their dollars on. They don't understand it. And so rather than say, I have no idea what you're talking about, you just get the no.
Perfect. Anything to add there, Jake?
I just totally agree. I mean, it's the best part about it for me is it's trackable. I mean, and whereas, I don't think print is entirely dead. We still do some stuff in print because we have a certain demographic in the theater that we reach well there. But the vast majority of our marketing budget is all digital. And I love being able to show, report conversion rates, all that. I mean, you just put it right in front of their face and go, look, it's working. And I can't do that with print. I have no idea. I mean, we'll put promo codes in there sometimes, but there's lots of data that shows that people don't even people who see an ad with the promo code, there's a certain percentage of them that don't even use the promo code. Yeah, I mean, I'm a huge believer in really high quality video and photography content when it comes to marketing. And the best places to promote that content obviously are digital, it's not print. And so I feel like, we're somewhat the poster child for a Community Boost client because our job is to create amazing content and their job is to get it in front of the right people. And you can have your amazing team at Community Boost who knows exactly who to get it in front of, but if your content sucks, it's not going to translate into the revenue that you want it to. So, but if you can give these guys excellent content, they're going to get the right eyes on it, and you're going to see results. And once we were able to start showing our board the kind of results we were getting from digital marketing and social media marketing, they'd be stupid not to encourage you to keep spending the majority of your budget on it. It's so trackable, and in my experience, it just works.
Well, and Jake, you said something there that I think was really valuable is with Community Boost that we've done a great job is we will sometimes be super excited about what we have in our hands and we'll say, look at this great piece of content that we have to share. And we'll ask Blake and we'll ask our third party partners and say, what do you guys think of it? And it doesn't make any sense to them because we become too close to the product and we just think we understand it so well. We did an online learning platform that was super complicated and thought it was so clear. And Community Boost is great on helping us kind of pare it down to make sure that, as an outsider with no understanding of what we're doing, that the messaging was clear the first time off the bat and you didn't have to be invested to kind of understand what was going on. So utilize your partners like Community Boost to make sure what you think you're saying is as clear and as concise and as wonderful as you think it is, because I think sometimes, especially with reopening, we get so excited about reopening, they're so excited about what we're doing that we just can't clearly see the product anymore or the campaign anymore. And so being, with Blake, we've got a great partner in him to be like, hey, what do you think about this? And he'll go, oh, or hey, this is great. Or hey, here's some opportunities here. And kind of leaning on people and not being afraid to get that criticism back to say, hey, here's how we can make it better is really, really important. And I think it's why we've been so successful in our reopening, because we've been really open to kind of hearing that feedback and open to kind of being afraid. We're not afraid to fail and we're not afraid to pivot. And I think that's just kind of something that I hope continues within our organization as we move into whatever this next normal of life is.
And as they're able to give you critical feedback and then show you the data that supports it. I've been in that chair before where I've been like, no, it's this image, it's this messaging, this is what we want. And then Brandon at Community Boost will be like, well, that's great, but this other one that we did is performing about 5 times better than that one. So we think we should push this one. And you go, okay.
Exactly. Couldn't agree more. And that thing that's funny, it's like sometimes we'll make it a little challenge. It's like, okay, well, you think this ad's going to perform best. We think this one's going to perform best. Let's let the data decide. And for those of you that don't have a partner or an agency that you work with, some of these tests you can run on your own and they don't have to be these mega multi-$1,000 tests. We're going to get into some of the channels that both Jake and Kristina think are the most effective when driving ticket sales in just a second. But I do want to preface that, for a lot of these, whether it's Google ads or for Facebook, there are very cost-effective ways to test, audiences and language before you even go into like a major, big campaign push. So I want to throw that out there too. Let's get into the next question. Did kind of pre-wire us for this. So what are the top channels that you found to be the most successful in driving ticket sales for your organization? Kristina, we can start with you.
I think for us, our Google ads, our Google paid search, and just even, Google display and retargeting has been huge for us because it allows us to reach a wider audience. So pre-COVID, we knew our audience was, the female head of household, purchased tickets for her kids from 6 to 12. Post-COVID, that audience has changed. We are seeing more couples on day dates that we never saw before. We're seeing a lot of older audiences without kids. So Google allowed us to kind of test, kind of as we mentioned earlier, we did a lot of A/B testing. We did a lot of research and kind of testing to see who works, and Google just converts so nicely for us. Facebook and social media continues to give us some great reach, but the conversion's okay. Google tends to be our strongest converter, and really just watching that come through, it has been awesome to say, we spent X dollars and got this. The ROI has been incredible, and allows us to amplify our social reach a little bit more by putting us on organic search and really focusing on the SEO and kind of all of that. But I'd say Google has been our top channel.
Nice. And Jake, for you?
Yeah, I
Any
mean,
players?
similar. I mean, Google's been great for us as well, but actually, we've seen extraordinary ROI on Facebook, and that may be somewhat the nature of what we do because we're a theater company and we're advertising shows. But pre-COVID, I mean, we were seeing crazy return on investment on Facebook, and depending on what we're doing. So in the theater world, and I didn't originate this concept, but it's one that I follow in terms of marketing, in terms of informational marketing versus missional marketing. If we're doing West Side Story, we're going to do a very much an informational marketing campaign on that, meaning just let the people know that it's happening. Everybody knows what West Side Story is. Just make sure you get in front of the right eyes and they know that it's happening. Whereas we might do like a world premiere, a new play that's never been done before and nobody knows what it is. And so we're going to take a much more missional approach. We're going to do a lot more video content. We're going to do behind the scenes interviews with the playwright and the director, and things to really get the word out there as to what it is. But for us, specifically, Facebook's good for both of them. But for informational marketing campaigns, for us, Facebook is so successful because you can be so creepily targeted, which is somewhat concerning as a human being and a citizen. But as a marketer, it's an incredible tool that it kind of does, those algorithms kind of do the work for you. But we've seen great success both with Google and with Facebook and Instagram, some of those platforms too. But we don't see the numbers through the conversion numbers that we do with Facebook and with Google like we do with those.
Yeah, and just a quick distinction too, because I'm obviously very familiar with Arizona Science Center's marketing, and I'm somewhat familiar with 80 Players. I do go in and support Brandon on some of the strategy and whatnot. I do know that for 80 Players, you have your remarketing like really dialed in, and like you said, the creepily targeting audiences all really dialed in. What's been cool to see on the Arizona Science Center side that some of you on this webinar might not know is that we actually got approved through the Google Ad Grant for additional budget and to go after COVID related terms, because for most of Google, you aren't allowed to, do advertising around COVID because of the spread of so much misinformation. But for Arizona Science Center and through Google for Nonprofits and the Ad Grant program, we were able to apply for the right to go after certain COVID related terms. Arizona Science Center was actually doing a great job putting out resources, both for parents who are going to be teaching from home, kind of homeschooling, just even information for kids around COVID and really what to know there. And so we got a little bit of an extra grant. And I think that's contributed to some of the results that Kristina was speaking to.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. In the very beginning of COVID, in the Phoenix market specifically, there was so much news coming from everywhere where nobody knew where to look. And so as the Science Center, we really took that information and kind of digested it through our informal learning team. And so we were putting out what I like to call, approachable, biteable information on COVID. And so in those first, I'd say 2-3 months, we were every day putting out a COVID update. And so it really allowed us to kind of earn that help from Google and really be that voice of reason for our guests and really our community. A lot of the news then leaned on us too. So it helped strengthen some of the relationships with our local news partners. And then things kind of obviously settled down a little bit and then it became a little bit more streamlined. So that was something that we stopped. But for a few months there, it was our daily morning focus was to put out a COVID update on what was happening, kind of doing myth busting, really just focused on what was the correct, accurate information and what did that mean to your life?
Absolutely. We'll get into the last question here and then we'll open it up to some Q&A. Jake, we can start with you, and you don't have to give away all of the secrets here, but are there any new strategies that you'll be utilizing to scale ticket sales in 2020? Hopefully you don't have any of your competitors on here and they're just trying to steal your digital marketing secrets.
I mean, honestly, not really. I think we'll just be focusing on the strategies that have been successful for us in the past. And I think we'll shift a little bit. You know, a lot of the stuff we've been doing during COVID is just sort of awareness campaigns, just like, hey, we're still here, we're still here, we're still here, don't forget about us. And then we'll probably shift that back to, really promoting specific individual events. But I think we'll largely go back to the strategy that was working before COVID. We'll probably spend, we may make the safety measures that we're taking a bigger part of that campaign, and make sure people feel comfortable coming back, and all of that. But as far as the overall strategy goes of how to market a show, I think we'll stay mostly digital. We'll stay mostly, really high quality, great video and photography content, assuring the audience that we're being responsible and safe, and that they're going to see a great show.
Kristina?
And I think for us, we're letting the data drive everything right now. So pre-COVID, Arizona Science Center was very, very successful. We were selling out, 6 days a week. Sundays were kind of a slow day, but we were still seeing really great attendance. So we had the money, they just kind of did things because they always did them versus any sort of tracking. And so now that we've kind of had COVID to put us a little bit in our tracks and a little more cautious with our dollars, we are really being data driven. So, okay, digital marketing's working. This is where we're going to put most of our dollars and really start to kind of test our way back into things that are being successful and what we can track and really what's reaching our new audiences. But outside of that, I don't foresee us doing anything new and different. We have invested, I think Jake made a great point, on really great photography and really great video to tell our story, and then allowing influencers and other members of the community, whether it be our local TV stations or radio stations, really kind of be our own testimonials. So we can tell you we're safe and great and wonderful all day long, but when you have a mom of 7 that just brought her kids in for the first time and she tells you, that's more powerful. So we're really elevating stories of our guests more and making sure and kind of raising their voices and getting out of the way and let people tell our story for us, which has been really exciting to kind of partner with the right influencers, partner with the right people, and then get the heck out of the way and focus on what is giving us a good return for our investment.
Love it. Great advice there. Well, Jake and Kristina, thank you so much for your insightful answers and for going through those questions. I want to make sure that we have a little bit of time for Q&A, as well as do a quick lightning round of additional advice and top strategies. Doesn't look like we have too many questions in the chat yet. So, but we do have about 11 people on. Now would be a great time to ask some of those questions either in the chat or the Q&A, and we can field those as they come. So maybe while I'm waiting for those questions to start populating, we can do the lightning round first. And so this lightning round is just kind of a summary of advice and top strategies and tactics that people here on the call should remember. We'll just give each of you like 30, 45 seconds to kind of sum that up. And Jay, I'll start with you.
I mean, I'm kind of going to piggyback on what Kristina said. Follow the data of what's working and what's not, and know your audience. I'm a big fan of polling your audience, especially in the era of COVID. Don't be afraid to, even if you've already done it before, try to really check the temperature of your audience, poll your audience, follow the data, even phone call campaigns. I mean, we've done, we've had just staff members that are at home, just call our season ticket holders, check on them, see what they're up to, see how they're feeling. It's so hard because we don't see them anymore. We're not in the same space as them anymore. I'm not at opening night reception and parties with them anymore. So just find those ways to connect with them, and figure out where they are, take their temperature.
Thanks. Kristina?
Yeah, I think what Jake said is spot on. Like, follow the data, ask questions, and listen, I think has been big for us. But then I think too, listening to our team, and we have, I would say 50% of our staff is on the floor. They are guest facing. So they are interacting, they've been interacting with our guests from kind of when this started. So we have a very strict health and safety policy, and listening to our team's level of like, hey, this is good, or hey, I'm starting to see this of guests, or I'm starting to feel uncomfortable about this with, masks have been quite an issue for us for a while. Just really listening to our team and really listening to our guests, I think has been the number one leader of kind of how we've gotten through this as successfully as we have and as united as we have, because our team has really great ideas and really great observations that in a pre-COVID world, we were probably moving too fast to stop and listen to. And so now taking the time to do that as a greater leadership team has proven to be very, very successful and really helpful for all of us.
Great advice from you both. And we have some questions popping in here, so I'm excited about that. We'll get to all of these right now. The first one is it's an anonymous question, and it says, when you reduce capacity, what are your marketing plans?
So I'll take that one because we've been open, but are you, if you want to know some dollars, they're real little. So when we opened, like I said, back in late August, we opened with, oh gosh, Blake, here, keep me honest. It was rough. I want to say we were spending maybe $1,500 a month in digital marketing, and it was really low and lean and mean. And as we've started to increase, we'll increase more dollars. But we started out and really, 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 truly have used, grassroots marketing. We really, really have, we've never been more involved with the news media and the influencers as we have in the, now. We are constantly on the phone with our producers. We're constantly talking to influencers and kind of looking at those free or low cost resources. And then my director of finance and I review the marketing budget every 2 months to say, hey, we're doing great. Here, you can have a little more money. So it's been very slow and steady. It's been very, at this point, we projected when we first reopened that we'd be at 50% capacity. We're still at 25. So we are just in the numbers quite a bit, just slowly coming back to normal, not overspending, and just really, again, letting the numbers speak for themselves and slowly growing, kind of getting back to hopefully a real hearty budget like it once was, but really just taking it slow and steady.
Have another question here from a theater nonprofit. Is there still an interest in subscriptions? How do you convince subscribers who don't like digital to join your new digital vision? Which I think is a great question.
Yes, there has been an interest in digital subscriptions. I will say it is minute, minuscule compared to the interest in an in-person subscription. And a lot of our subscribers who had already bought an in-person subscription, we just sort of converted them to the digital. Our digital numbers are not huge, but they're enough that it's worth doing it. I always encourage people just watch one, or here, let me send you a free link. Like, just if I always ask our box office to forward me any emails or communications from people who are very upset or confused over something. I like to see those personally, and I usually respond in a personal way. And oftentimes I'll just send them a link and say, hey, just check it out, or explain to them the reasons why we're not open yet. People don't know what they don't know, and they make certain assumptions about how our business works. And if I'm able to explain to them, that we have to bring in this amount of revenue, we have to be able to sell this amount of seats to be able to welcome you back to the theater. We can't do that right now. Let's even put health and safety protocols aside. Financially, we can't do that right now. So you're never going to get the digital engagement that you're going to get with in person when it comes to the theater world. But we do all we can to try to get it in front of them. And most of the people, when they check something out, they do end up really enjoying it and go, oh, well, that was actually a lot better and a lot different than I thought it was going to be. They kind of I think they have this thing in their mind that we, set up an iPhone in the back of the theater, and then and that's what we're sending them, when it's not that at all. It's much, it's much more akin to like something you would see on PBS, But yeah, I mean, it's tough. In my experience, you're just not going to get anywhere close to the sort of engagement online that you will at an in-person theatrical performance.
Yeah, I think that's very fair. We have a
And I
couple
was
other
just going to
questions
say,
here.
I was
Go
just
ahead,
going to add
Kristina.
to that real quickly. I mean, everybody had to kind of forced to go virtual, a lot of people with their works and their jobs. So there are segments of the audience that we have that are like, I don't want to touch your virtual stuff. I think it's great that you're doing it. That's not for me. And we'll allow them to, hey, here's what we can do for you if you don't want to stay virtual, because I think there's a segment of the audience that just is virtual burnout, that doesn't want it. And we aren't going to force it. We just let them know it's there if they need it. But here in the meantime are some other things that you can do. We've done a lot of sharing with our ASTC passport program. So with our membership, you have memberships at other science centers across the country. We'll help them find, if they're in a market that they're traveling to where that museum or center's open, hey, with your membership, you get this free. So we kind of focus on the other things in the membership if virtual is not for that guest.
That's great advice. Yeah, and I think that can even play into how you're communicating with those people via email on certain channels. It's like really making sure it's segmented and that you're thinking through who you're talking to.
If I can piggyback that on the
Yeah.
exactly what you said, like our virtual content has been uber focused on our core audience and our subscribers, because we can't compete on the global scale when it comes to virtual theater. You can pay $7 a month for a Disney Plus subscription and watch Hamilton filmed on Broadway with 17 cameras, and like there's no way that even though our virtual content is very high quality, there's no way we're going to compete with that. So we really laser focus in on our audience. And try to be very intentional about things that they're going to enjoy, actors they've come to know through our organization that they're going to enjoy, content, stories that they're going to enjoy, and try to really cultivate an experience that's very specific for them.
Exactly. I said it better myself. So we have one last question here before we wrap up, and this is from Grace. Thank you so much for throwing this question in there, Grace. So Grace says that her nonprofit is a new nonprofit charity organization on a mission to empower seniors, mothers, and children who are in need. Sounds amazing. And so she's come to gain ideas on how to improve fundraising and media influencers, possibly by introducing some form of sales, not necessarily tickets. So yeah, she's looking for ideas on how to improve fundraising and media influencers through sales, but not necessarily tickets.
So I can take this one. For us, we have a lot of influencers that turned they used to be, just that mommy blogger group that turned into homeschools over COVID. And so now they were, stay-at-home moms that are now doing schools. We've really partnered with them to show them a lot of our educational offerings and a lot of our packages. So we basically called them and said, hey, we see what you're doing. We want to support you. Would you like to try this virtual field trip or these different things for free? And then we don't pay them, they don't pay us. And if they like it, they talk about it. If they don't, they could still talk about it. But thankfully they haven't had any negative feedback. But it's a risk where we just allow influencers to try our products and then kind of let it speak for itself. We've been very fortunate to where it's been positive. And they've been able to kind of come into the center or talk about our virtual offerings and really just kind of get out of the way. So it is a kind of our free, low, no cost way to find influencers. And we have Meltwater, which is a media subscription based to find influencers, as well as just following who follows us on Instagram and Facebook, who's tagging us, who's, going back, and we've got a threshold or kind of an algorithm of, hey, they can meet our criteria to invite them in. And then I keep them on a list. And every time we've got something going on, I invite them back in and have regular communication. And it makes it really easy to, I might give away 6 tickets to a family, but then that media influencer reaches 100,000 people with one post. So it's really nice. And we do a no strings attached on purpose to make it be easy and effortless. If we're going to do anything bigger, we'll kind of put restrictions or requirements on it. But it's worked for us really well so far with just offering our services and letting people talk about it if they feel so inclined, but not requiring it.
Great advice. Jake, anything to add there? No? Perfect. Okay. And there's one other question that was very similar to the influencing, looking for the influencer marketing strategy. So I think you nailed that, Kristina. Well, perfect. If there are any follow-up questions, we will be sending out this recording to everyone, and we will get to you on any additional questions that you might have. But Jake and Kristina, really on behalf of Community Boost, I just want to thank you so much for taking the time today. Your expertise, your experiences, they are invaluable. We will definitely, after this, like I said, we will be following up with the webinar recording as well as the link to both organizations if you want to take a look. They do such amazing digital marketing just across the board. I mean, as far as website, email, Facebook, Google Ads, there's so much to be learned from their approach. And so I would definitely recommend, digging into their channels and seeing how they do things outside of what we talked about today. And again, to both of you, Community Boost is going to be making a contribution to both your organizations. I mean, they mean so much to us. Jake is really great getting to learn a little bit more about AD players. Work with you slightly, with more through Brandon, but Kristina, it's been such a delight getting to work with you over the last couple of years. And so for everyone that's still here, thank you so much for joining today's session. We really appreciate it. One other thing before you go, if you do want to stay up to date on our future events and new updates, you can actually join our texting community by texting JOIN, JOIN, to 619-202-8959, and that'll start a flow that will then give you updates on our next marketing event that we're going to be running and other webinars. So again, thank you so much, Kristina and Jake, for being on. Really, really appreciate it. And everyone else, have a great rest of your day.
Thanks.
Bye. Take care.